So, hey everyone, my name is Jack. I'm joined here by Sean, who's the Webpack team, I guess. Is that your
What's
official
up?
title?
Yeah,
Core team member,
maintainer.
maintainer.
Yep, core team.
Wicked. And yeah, basically, I jumped on. I messaged Sean asking if he'd be me contribute to Webpack for the very first time. Having seen recently that there's a lot of kind of ES 2015 refactoring that can be done now. Webpack has dropped 12, I think, and moved to Node
That's
4.
right. Mm-hmm.
And I thought that'd be a good example for me to contribute to Webpack. And I thought maybe if we could do it on a Google Hangout that we can record and then post later on YouTube, maybe anyone else who's looking to contribute to one of the probably the most prominent open source projects there is in terms of JavaScript anyway. It might be a useful resource. So that's what we're going to do today, really. In the course of this video, we'll edit some code, push it to GitHub, make the pull request, and then if we're lucky, Sean might even review it in front of our very own eyes. So yeah, all I've done is I've gone to GitHub, I've clicked fork on the Webpack repo, I've got my own version of it, I've cloned that down, and then to install it, I just ran yarn, and then there's a couple of steps in the contributing markdown file, basically this setup here. So I've git cloned, although I've cloned my fork rather than the original repo, installed yarn, run yarn install, then run the yarn link and yarn link webpack, and that works fine. So at this point, I'm kind of ready to set up and get going. So I'm on the master branch of my fork. Now, something I would do typically if I was going to make a pull request is I'd actually do it from not the master branch. So I'd do it from a branch that described what the work was. Git checkout minus B, refactor. So I'll say refactor entry options plugin. And now I'm on that new branch. This is the branch I'll then push to GitHub. And then I'll make the pull request from my fork on this branch into the Webpack master branch. The file that Sean has kind of picked out for us as a good one to work on. So Sean, do you want to just give a quick description of what this code is doing?
I guess too long didn't read version is that 80% of Webpack source code is actually made of the same plugins you use in your configuration. And so what's really neat about that is that it makes this really modular and flexible. And so the plugin that we're looking at right now has one purpose, and it's essentially to take the entry property from your configuration, decide whether or not it is store in an array, and then it is going to pass it off to a separate single purpose plugin to set your entry point.
Cool. So this is literally when I say entry and I give it an object with main that maps to main.js, this is run through that plugin which passes it and figures out which plugin to then use, either single entry or multi-entry to kind of do the rest.
Yeah, if you wanted to get really crazy, you could actually put this plugin in your config and it would probably and pass like an entry point or the same arguments it's looking for, and it would probably have the same behavior as adding an entry point.
What we're going to do today is to basically just ES 2015 this up. Webpack now supports Node 4, right, as its lowest version. So that means we're able to use a lot more of the ES 2015 features that we weren't able to use when Webpack was on 0.12. So you can run the full Webpack test suite, and it takes, on my machine anyway, it took about 4 minutes to run, which isn't too bad. Obviously, we don't want to be doing 4-minute runs every single time. Sean has showed me a way to just run a kind of small selection of tests. So I will find that now if I go up through my history. So we use npm bin to get the location of the locally installed version of Mocha, which is a test framework. And then we run --grep to filter for only particular tests. In this case, one's called config test cases, or that have config test cases in the description of the test, I believe.
Yep, it's inside the string for the describe.
But these
you
tests
want to try and break it and show them that the test would work?
Yeah, so we break, let's just change multi here to single. So we can see here that I do have an error. A request.replace is not a function. They're probably all going to be that, aren't they? But that's a bunch of errors because I've now broken the code effectively. So what we'll do is, as we go through this file, when we make significant changes, we'll run the test regularly so we know when we've broken something. Cool. So from looking at some of the other Webpack pull requests, Sean, I believe the way we're doing this now is we'll create a class called entry option plugin with an apply method. So maybe our first step could be to replace this function, the prototype.apply, with a class.
Yeah, totally.
So I'm going to go up here and I'll change this to a class. And then Do you like the module.exports below the class declaration, or would you put it, can it even go above? I think it can.
So we haven't decided on it yet because we have kind of a mix. I've seen both. I kind of prefer underneath, but I think most people have been saying do module.exports equals class entry option plugin, and then the block.
And then remove the old apply, and I'll just indent that properly. Cool. And now we again can run all these tests to confirm that I haven't done something too stupid. And I'm just looking through the source code. There's I can maybe change this item to plugin function to be an arrow function. I guess that depends on like your opinion, Sean, and if that's kind of the style of the Webpack code base or not. What are your thoughts on arrow functions? Like, would you change this function here, the one after the plugin, for example, or do you tend to leave them as is?
So for those, I do use arrow functions. You just have to be careful. So as you can see, there's different, the compiler.plugin method is actually part of the plugin system that lets you listen into events that are emitted from different, objects. So like the compiler, sometimes the compiler will return a value or have a property that you can also plug into. So sometimes you'll have some of those nested functions. And so the only thing I'd say is just be careful when you go a couple levels deep to make sure that if you do lose your contextual this, that in like a variable or something like that to continue through the scope. But yeah, we like arrow functions. It looks overall better.
Cool. Well, we can certainly do, there's a couple places here where we can do an arrow function just to, while we're here. So I'll do that one. And then I think down here, there's for each as well, we could probably change.
Yep, totally.
And then we could even bring this all onto one line and ditch those, I think. But I can find out if I've done that correctly, which is the nice thing about it.
That is the best part.
Yeah, it's the worst when you go to refactor something and then you go to run the test and you realize there aren't any tests. Like,
oh yes.
I won't do that, or I'll spend ages writing tests first.
This is scary for us too.
Yeah, I bet. So something that's bugging me here is the lack of braces around this if else.
Yeah, that's actually kind of our in our style guide though. So Tobias originally is a C# developer, and so like
it's bugging me in terms of my preference, but I guess it's there on purpose and is the style of.
Trust me, same here.
Objectively.
I like the braces always, but I'm actually starting to get used to it a little bit. But yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I've had pull requests on projects before that have like changed the entire coding style of the project, and it's like, whilst the work here is good, I think it can be frustrating for maintainers when they have PRs like that, because I think really me as the person trying to contribute here to Webpack is I should like maintain the coding style and the preference of the author or the team that builds the project. So like if this was my code and this was my project, I would certainly put braces around this if else, but like I'm going to leave it here because it's clearly the style of Webpack, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. And if you want to double check, you can run npm run lint, and we can just verify that the linting is correct as well.
Yeah. So shall I put braces around this?
Oh no, I'd leave them off, and I think for that we will throw linting errors for, so it'll probably fail our CI once you pushed it.
Oh, cool. Okay. So I can just run npm run lint to kind of check all my code.
Oh yeah, we got a question from Tom Fletcher. He goes, well, wait, shouldn't the other one follow the same guide?
Yeah, so that was the next question, is we seem to have two different code styles in one file.
Well, heck, we should make it at least one or the other. What do the errors say?
So that was when I ran npm run lint. Let's have a look. Got one error.
What's it say?
Oh, class is in non-strict mode and not yet supported on node v4.
There you go.
So I need to put a use strict in here, I guess.
Nice.
Cool. So
I guess we don't have any styling lint on other. So I guess I'm contradicting myself. Why don't we put? You could choose whichever one you like.
Right. I'm also wondering if we could really go ES 2015 and make this an arrow function and make it a ternary instead, and try and get it shorter. But I'm thinking that might be a bit over the top. Like part of me wants to write array.isArray item and then do like that, but I think actually there's going to be quite a lot, so that will get quite long, so probably just leave it as so. I think sometimes with ES 2015 and arrow functions, it's really tempting to squish it all into like one big line and like not have any return keywords ever.
So true.
Like it when it is possible to do that. I think sometimes it's easy to forget that we can just have regular functions over a few lines with regular ifs and returns. I wonder if ESLint has a rule for around conditionals.
I wouldn't be surprised if they did.
Such a rule. Yeah. So maybe that's one I can follow up this video with. But I have just done a refactor, so I'll check the test and then we'll run ESLint again and see that that's looking good. So the tests are passing, and we'll run lint as well. And at that point, I guess, presuming this is nice to me and we do pass, which we have passed, we can, I guess I'll commit this and push this up to GitHub. That would be the next thing I do. Unless you think I've like missed anything or missed any steps.
No, that's perfect. That's all it takes.
That's all it takes.
Oh wait, you know what? I do see one thing.
Oh yeah.
Go ahead and switch over that var to a const up at the
good spot. So
for both of those. We haven't switched it over yet. We will use prefer const as a rule for ESLint, but we haven't gotten there. Saves you the trouble later, or me.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, and I'll just run tests again. I'm the kind of paranoid type of person who runs a lot, like it tests a lot. So
you and me both.
Double check. Yeah, cool. And I just realized as well, there was one other thing I forgot to mention, because the lowest version of Node that Webpack supports is version 4. I was running Node v6 locally, but I've swapped to Node 4 here, so I can do this pull request. That's important in this case because we're doing like native ES 2015 features. If I was running Node 6, add some ES 2015 features that are only supported in Node 6 rather than Node 4. So I back down to Node 4 for the purposes of this pull request.
Yes.
Really, if you're maintaining a project, it's best to work on that project and the lowest common denominator.
If you use the text editor, you could probably have some good ESLint support, because we have a Node ESLint plugin that looks to the engine that we support and says
cool.
Only those rules for that version of Node will be supported. It's a great plugin.
Oh, nice. That's cool. Yeah, I do have ESLint and Vim set up somehow, but it doesn't seem to have picked up for this project. That's probably because my dot files are a mess. I'll look into that another time. Cool. So at that point, we're kind of in a position now where we're ready to commit this and push this up. I will kill Vim. Don't need Vim anymore. And then we'll look at the diff. So you can see we've just changed paths to constants, and then we've rewritten the plugin in ES 2015 as a class, which is excellent. So I'll add that file. Try to avoid using my aliases so it doesn't confuse everyone. So I'll do git add. And then if we look at git status, see I've got that modified. So then I'll do git commit. And I've personally taken to always doing git commits this way. So I write a more descriptive commit message, rather than doing like a little inline git commit -m in the message. So here I'll write refactor entry option plugin to ES 2015 class. And if there was more information needed, I could write like a longer message here and add more detail, but in this case there really isn't. So I'll just leave it like that. So I'll push it up to my branch. So I'll push it onto origin and then the name of my branch. There's a really cool tool by GitHub called Hub, which is like a command line tool for interacting on Git repos that are on GitHub. Yeah, so it's really cool. So one called Hub pull request, which will let me create the pull request from the command line. One of the other useful commands is Hub browse. So if I hit that, it's now going to go and open this branch for me on my fork. So I'm now on this branch that I just pushed, and I can immediately hit the compare and pull request button. And what I do typically, obviously I don't do too many pull requests, but what I tend to do at this point is, I'll come back to this in a second, is I'll look through the change again myself on GitHub. I think it's quite a nice another review step. Often if I've been looking at code in my editor for ages, I won't spot a mistake, but I will spot that mistake immediately on GitHub, just I think because like it changes the scenery a bit. And now I've got to go through all this here. So this is like a template, right, that you can define.
It is. So I think maybe we need to make it a little bit easier for people to understand where things go, but you can leave those in there and they won't be shown. That's why they're in the comment syntax. So cool. As long as you put it underneath the bolded markdown, you're good.
Nice. Cool. So what kind of change? Refactors entry option plugin 2015. 2ES 2015, I guess. You add test field changes. In this case, I haven't, but it's not. There's no new functionality. So I've now made a pull request from this branch, that refactor entry options plugin, into the Webpack master branch. It's going to run, I guess, on the CI that the Webpack set up. And I just sit tight for a nice friendly maintainer to come along and check my work, I guess.
We have a continuous integration hookup, so I can see immediately that, oh, hey, look.
Oh, has it failed?
Oh, no, these are some previous ones, but I can see, where's code review? Sorry. There we go.
Sorry, I've only just started watching the screen. Oh, cool.
But okay, so let's take a look and just do a little quick code review and see what we got here. Oh, it did fail. Let's look.
Yeah, I've broken it.
Let's take a look and see what it is. No, I guess a new version of Node just came out, so this is a flake. I've seen AppFair report this a bunch of times. So we can take a look. So the first thing I usually do is take a look and see if you signed the CLA. So
I don't know.
If you haven't signed the CLA, do so.
Okay, so I need to go and sign the CLA.
Exactly.
All right, so I will go and do that. We ask you to sign this, so I just click this. CLA assistant, okay. So I'm just authorizing the CLA assistant to run against my GitHub. And now I'm going to sign that.
And this just protects us as an organization saying like, oh, this is my code, and if you were to ever monetize this, or what is it, or if we said it didn't belong to us, then I could pull it out at any time. And since we're a non-profit open source organization anyways, it's just part of a requirement for the JS Foundation. So yeah, it just keeps the code to belong a part of the community and nobody else. So that's what the CLA is for.
Perfect. So I've just signed that. So hopefully the bot will momentarily leave another comment.
Heck yeah, it should kick. It should kick in right away, but we'll see.
Yeah, it's updated its comment.
Nice. Okay, so
cool.
So this looks pretty harmless to me as far as I can tell. Entry option. Sometimes I actually like to view the code as is by itself first, and then I'll go back in and compare it. If type of entry is string, or if it is an array, then we send it. Yeah, so something that's interesting is that like every entry has to have a name, but if you don't use a object or then you don't have keys for multiple entry points. And usually those keys represent the name. And so you can see here that by default, we're naming that entry point main. Yeah, so if you use like the name interpolation syntax in the output property, that's where it comes from. Object.keys, so for each entry, add an item and then make the key be the name. So yeah, that's exactly the logic right there. So I guess technically the first thing I would probably do is jump back to PRs and mark this as a refactor. And it's just a little bit easier for me to keep track of. And we've been, like I said, had a huge influx. Investigate if direction is fine. This tells other core team members or contributors that this can be reviewed. And then, but I already know that the direction is okay. We also have some other ones like finish details, test needed, etc.
Cool.
So let's jump back in and I'll just change it really quick since I already know. Give my review. Hope you didn't use Vim. Just kidding. Good pending CI. Is this your first PR? It is. So I have a little Chrome extension.
My first Webpack PR. Oh, that's cool.
That tells me. So
nice.
Submitting your first PR. That is all she wrote.
As a contributor who's had a PR merged, how would I roughly know when, like, the final or a release, for example? Is there like a regular schedule or anything, or is it kind of done as and when?
So since we're in release candidate right now, we don't have, we're on our final stages for it actually being released. So even though the changes that you've made will get merged into master, hopefully relatively quickly, especially if it's a ES5 to ES6 conversion, you may not see a new version published right away, at least until it may be your code will be part of the Webpack final release, which is kind of cool in itself.
Cool. So I guess and if there are other people watching this wanting to find like a similar file to ES2015ify, we picked one from the lib directory, right, of the Webpack repository, and that's kind of the best place to go and look.
That's right. The first thing I would recommend is check the pull requests that are already out there. You could even filter by refactor and see which ones are still open. And then just make sure, that way not to already work on something that is already in progress. But yeah, it's as simple as taking a look at any of the files in lib. And the only advice I can give is sometimes we do have some inheritance. And so you want to make sure that if you are or if the class that you're working on is, how would I describe this? If it has super classes underneath, or I'm sorry, subclasses underneath that are extending it, you would need to refactor those first before you refactor that one. But otherwise, have at it.
Well, Sean, thank you very much for taking the time to hop on the call and kind of guide me through that process. It's also very nice to be able to contribute a very small PR back to Webpack. So we'll call it a day or a night, and hopefully for those who are watching, if there is anyone that was useful. And Sean, thank you very much, and I'm sure I'll chat to you again soon on GitHub or Twitter.
All right, sounds good, man. Have a good one.
All right, wicked. You too. Thank you again, and yeah, we'll catch you later.